Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you guys are enjoying your Friday. This is a brand new installment of We Are in Crisis, episode 12. If you could do me a favor and be a pal, please click that like button if you watch this video. I just thought of quickly hopping in and doing a quick live. I don't have a lot of time, but I am going to go ahead and discuss a few topics of interest that just made me want to go live. So, essentially, there have been a few breaking news that have taken place, and I've just been caught off guard by everything that's been happening with the news. So, I'm going to try to be as detail oriented as possible, but don't hold me to it because I'm always prone to making some sort of mistake. So there have been three incidents that have been making waves lately, and I thought of just bringing that to this video and sort of brushing on it and discussing it a little bit even further. So essentially, we have a situation with this individual that just lost their lives recently, um, by the name of Jason Hughes. This individual lost their lives, and it it was unfortunate how it took place. How this person lost their lives. They were just 40 years old, and he had you know, his whole life ahead of him. He had, I believe, two teenage boys, and unfortunately, a prank led to his death. Hi, Island Girl. So a mindless prank led to this person's death. And I just can't wrap my head around it, but I can't even imagine how the teenagers must feel knowing that they played a role in his death. That really has to just sting just to even think about it. I couldn't grapple with it. If I was doing a prank and I ended up costing someone's life, I don't know how I could recover from that experience. And I've been through a lot. So I just cannot imagine how these children must be feeling after everything was said and done. So essentially, what happened is that they were doing the usual junior senior pranks where they toilet the house, with toilet paper. And for some reason, everything went south. Everything went south. And around 11:40 p.m., their teacher just steps out. I don't know if that was a rainy day or what took place. I don't know if it was just water that accumulated from the previous day, but it just, the whole situation went completely south because at some point, what happened is he, I don't know how that happened. They just noticed their teacher, I guess, exiting his house, and I guess they got alarmed by it, or the adrenaline rush just kicked in. So they all, I guess it was like two pickup trucks. So the four to five students that were pranking him, they ended up going inside respective vehicles. And before, before it happened, it just really surprises me how, uh, just a silly prank could turn deadly because eventually they're ready to leave. And I don't know if he was running after them or what happened, but eventually I guess he made it to the road and he lost his balance because he slipped. And I believe the road was wet. So again, I don't know if there was a puddle or if it was raining, but something happened where he lost his balance. As a result, he tripped, and I believe one of the pickup trucks ended up running over him. And as a result of it, he ended up just losing his life right on the spot. Well, not right on the spot, right? Because I did read it, but let's just say he couldn't make a recovery. They were there trying to give him aid and they were trying to assist him. But even though the, they took him to emergency and everything, he wasn't able to survive the ordeal. He unfortunately just lost his life, and it's just a tragedy when you think about it. I couldn't fathom just going through that experience. But essentially, what happened is that the five teenagers responsible, they were going to be hit with different charges. Four of them were going to be hit with trespassing, and they were going to also be hit with what is it, littering charges. But the one who hit him with the pickup truck, he was going to face vehicular homicide and reckless driving charges. But surprisingly, I believe from what I read recently, the charges have been dropped completely. So the teenager or the teenagers aren't going to be facing any sort of charges whatsoever. I don't know how to feel about it because there should be a small punishment, not prison. I don't know if prison is the right type of punishment for them, but they should face at least, I don't know, maybe a fine, maybe community service, somewhere, something in between, at the very least. If they're not going to give him prison, which I don't think prison, it's a little murky because some people might say he deserved it. But if he truly felt remorseful about it and he never intended for that to ever happen, then I don't believe prison would really be an ideal situation for an accident just that was just completely out of his hand. He was driving off and he couldn't control whether or not the teacher chased after them, and he just eventually slipped and just got in front of the pickup truck when they were about to leave. So yeah, I believe there should have just been a penalty there, just some sort of fine or community service. I don't know if walking scot-free, but then again, the trauma of that situation is there with them, so that is also gonna hold them back in some shape or form, and they're gonna have to really overcome that hurdle in order to live their lives prior to that accident, which a traumatic event of that magnitude really can make everything difficult to process in some cases, and it's also very difficult to move on when something that difficult takes place. But that's essentially what happened there, and it's just a tragedy how this poor lady unfortunately lost her husband and her two sons as well. Their two sons no longer have their father. I can't imagine how they must be feeling because I believe they're young teenagers as well, so it's not easy being a teenager. And then when you add the fact that they lost their father because of a senior prank gone wrong, that just it just leaves me in shock that something so small could turn into something deadly. You just never know when your time is up, and just can't even imagine what this family must be going through in personally, especially after this tragedy that just unfolded. So we have that situation that took place. And then I just wanted to quickly talk about this other situation. So we had a 12-year-old by the name of Jade West. Now, surprisingly, I believe both of these stories took place in Atlanta. Well, not I won't say in Atlanta, but in Georgia. They both took place in Georgia. So Jade West, so if you haven't heard of Jade West, she unfortunately passed away. And it was an unfortunate situation because she was very young. She was just 12 years old. I believe they had a recording, but I personally didn't bother watching the recording. Uh, I don't got time to see a 12-year-old get beat up, and I don't even know if the video shows her potentially not being conscious or anything, so I I prefer avoiding that at all costs if possible. I just can't handle that. I mean, some people have the skin, and I do as well, but there are days where I just think to myself, I might as well avoid it if possible, because, I try to be mindful of how a situation or a person might affect my energy. So I try to, put a stop to it before it gets, out of control or out of hand. But she lost her life, and it was all because of teenagers just getting into each other's faces and turning a situation into a confrontation gone wrong. And apparently, Jade West, again, this situation, from what I can remember, this girl was slammed to the ground. And I don't know exactly how that that person who bullied her must have been a giant, because based on that situation alone, she lost consciousness. But I keep seeing different iterations, so I don't know if she lost consciousness right away or if it was around the time when her family picked her up. It's really hard to pinpoint exactly. I'm gonna go and assume it must have been shortly after, but essentially, that's pretty much what happened. And she lost consciousness and she lost her life tragically, which shouldn't have happened in the first place, but it did. It ended up happening. And this was literally when they got off the school bus. And this is just how the situation unfolded. From what I can recall, they recorded the fight and she got slammed to the ground, and eventually it's really hard to say how it got to that point, how her injuries became so intense to the point where she just lost her life. Um, from what I can remember reading the story, there was like like a tube attached to her throat, and I'm assuming that was for oxygen. I don't really know exactly, but I believe I also read that there were cardiac issues involved as well. And I'm just thinking to myself, wow, such a young life lost away because, egos get in the way, and then once egos get in the way, tempers flare. Then unfortunately someone loses their life tragically at the age of 12. You just can't make this up, how things happen out of the blue. And then when they get out of control, people are left wondering, why didn't we put a stop to it sooner? But that's essentially what happened. She lost her life. Jade West, 12 years old. Uh, this was, a young life taken away, a very young life. Her and another teen got into it, and then the other teen, I guess, must have been bigger than her, stronger than her, and she just, I guess, slammed Jade West to the ground, and that's how she got her injuries, which eventually made her lose consciousness. And then eventually it turned out that she had cardiac issues, and as a result of her injuries, she lost her life. So it's just tragic to see how this situation turned so ugly out of nowhere. And this took place, I believe it was Villa Rica, and this was like, I believe in Georgia, Atlanta. So we got that situation that unfolded. And then finally we have a situation where, you know, and I don't know how much of this I want to cover, but I will say there was this former mayor, disgraced former mayor, by the name of Misty Roberts. And I gotta say, the whole situation with Misty Roberts left me surprised how someone could just throw their lives away and potentially face a jail sentence of 17 years for hosting her teenage son's birthday party. I believe he was 16 at the time, so this took place in 2024. And he was 16 at the time, so this year he'll probably be 18. So she hosted a birthday party and it went south because she started serving drinks to these minors, and eventually one thing led to another, and she ended up allegedly, from what I've read, taking one of her son's friends to the game room, and apparently, they got jiggy with it and they got it on with each other. She was serving him a lot of compliments, and doing anything she could, I guess, to impress him or arouse him, whatever her intention was at the time. And one thing led to another, and it got out of control. And I believe, from what I've read, I don't know if she's going to post bond for this situation. I believe her court hearing is early April, so around the first week of April. But her charges are carnal knowledge of a juvenile and indecent behavior. And carnal knowledge of a juvenile is typically when I believe you are at least 4 years older than a minor, you are engaging in any sort of sexual activity. And well, obviously she's in her 40s and the teen was in his, well, 16 years old. So yeah, there is a bit of an age gap there, which is 4 years or above, which constitute as carnal knowledge of a juvenile. That is already 10 years. And then of course, indecent behavior typically will land you 7 years behind the pen. But again, she was a former mayor, and she might have some pull and the ability to probably even walk scotch-free to an extent by posting bond. So there is that possibility as well. The bond could be at least $100,000 from what I remember reading, but I don't know if there is a potential change down the road. I say deserves to, at the very least, serve a year or two if we're not giving her a lengthy sentence. Uh, Honestly, she should serve at least several years in prison. But the situation got out of control, and she really tried to even eventually talk to her nephew, and she was just worried about what happened at the party. She was very concerned. She was trying to make her nephew see if she could sort of smooth the situation over. The same with her ex-husband. She was trying to see if her ex-husband could reach out to the family of that victim and sort of figure out if or have him figure out if he can make the situation any easier for them. So, because she wanted the nephew to initially tell his friend not to tell anyone about it, and then the ex-husband to sort of fix the situation on her behalf. I believe her mental health was in a different place when that took place. So obviously, I want to probably touch on this again when I get the chance. but it is ridiculous how a mayor could even engage in this type of behavior, and that's why she was eventually replaced as the mayor of Louisiana, DeRidder, because she was found in the middle of a scandal almost 2 years ago. So there's a lot there to unpack, and I'll probably unpack even more of it when I get the chance because this is a little bit of an interesting story for me. So, what I will say is that she has been added to the what is it, the sex offender registry. I remember seeing an article that allegedly stated she was level one, but then again, I read another article that said she just wasn't assigned a level yet, but she is included on the sex offender registry. So we have that going for her. But I have to obviously touch on that because this story is a little bit more deep than what I've been sharing so far. So I definitely want to bring this up again later on. But otherwise, I think I'm just gonna end it for today. And if you guys can please do me a favor and click that like button uh as we wrap up this live, as I wrap up this live. That would help me in the algorithm. And remember, every like helps the channel. So thank you guys for watching live. And if not, thank you for watching as part of the replay game. You guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.